You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk 1150 AM. Now, back to the show with local mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell.
You are listening to The Money Hour at 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, December 17th show. You can also listen to my show podcast, Facebook premiere, or you can catch my show on my show YouTube channel. I am your host and local mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell. I'm here to help you build a strong financial blueprint 1 week and one show at a time. If you are hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. I'm here to answer any questions or connect you with the guests that I have on the show today. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150, or you can go online at themoneyhour.com. And now in studio, I have Jasmine Svare of Yellow Arrow Counseling, and we're going to be talking about boundaries and self-care right here on 1150 AM KKNW. Jasmine, thank you for joining me in my virtual show.
Tina, thank you so much for having me. I will tell everybody I lost my voice this morning, so it will be here to the extent that it can be here.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. And I was actually going to give a shout out on that as well, because you can probably hear your host is sick too. I do have my voice. So I might be a step up in concern. I know I'm not going to lose my voice, but thank you, Jasmine. I appreciate you coming in to the show, even though you're under the weather today.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Jasmine. So a little bit about Jasmine before we get started. She is a licensed mental health counselor based out of Kirkland, Washington. She meets with clients virtually and in person in her Kirkland office. Jasmine specializes in working with individuals with low self-esteem or relationship issues. Jasmine especially loves working with high performers who have a lingering feel that they're not enough. Jasmine also has a new group where she focuses on boundaries and self-care. The group is unlimited and open to anyone who wants to explore their own challenges with taking care of themselves in all of the ways that are necessary. Jasmine info, she can be founded on yellowarrowcounseling.com. So, Jasmine, let's go ahead and start out today. A question: what usually brings people to work in therapy? What causes them to pick up the phone or reach out online to get therapy?
Yeah, the first thing I would say about that is it's actually like something that seems horrible, but it's a really good invitation to therapy. So it's usually some sort of crisis that has been building for a long time, and then something ruptures and they realize that they need help. The alternative to that is maintaining this like low level misery for a long time, but not really being able to do anything about it. And so it's usually like a divorce, loss of a job, some people start having panic attacks. That's a big one that will bring people to therapy, but it's usually something that has been there for a really long time and it's finally just done.
Yeah. And that low level misery, it becomes that high level misery if not taken care of because of the ripple effect, right? You know, yes. And it's the importance of having an expert. So how do you find a good therapist? Jasmine?
Good question. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of really bad therapists out there too. So it's a really tough thing to know how to find a good therapist. I think a personal referral is really important, which is why I love the communities of, referral companies. But the most important thing is how you feel with the therapist. And so most therapists offer a free consultation, and there's no reason that you need to pick the first therapist. You can have multiple consultations with multiple therapists and just notice how you feel when you talk to them. How do you feel in that relationship? That's the most important part of therapy, is the relationship with the therapist, actually.
Yeah. And I mean, anything that you're purchasing where you have somebody that's going to be walking you through the process, getting a mortgage or buying a house, which is in my arena, the person that you choose, that's what makes or break. And even more so in what you do as a therapist, because you really have to be able to connect with that therapist in order for them to, no matter how much knowledge they have, if you don't have that connection, it's going to be hard for your therapist to get things out of you and to really draw the best best to help you heal to be your best, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I like that shout out, and have your initial consultations so that you can kind of go through that interview process to see what your intuition, your gut is telling you who is going to most connect with you. So Jasmine, what do you offer in your practice?
So I do private practice therapy. So I meet with clients individually once a week, usually. Sometimes I meet with them twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. My practice is very full right now because a lot of people are experiencing stress in their lives. And so what I decided to do was start a group so that more people can come in and get support. And so the group is unlimited and open to anybody. And I would say most people who come to my practice on some level struggle with boundaries and self-care. So that's why I named the group that. I used to call it the codependency group, but I think that turned people off a little bit. Codependency really is just lack of boundaries and lack of self-care. So I just kind of revamped it. I don't have a lot of space for new clients, but I have a lot of space for people who want to come into the group.
Well, and that's really great, Jasmine, when you get to a position, because as a therapist, it's not like in my business, you just keep hiring to your team. You add team members to help support more business. As a therapist, you are the therapist, and people are signing on for you to have therapy sessions with you. So what a great idea and a great service that you've been able to provide as your practice is full individually to be able to put these group sessions. And there's some real benefits, and this as a therapist, Jasmine, but real good benefits when you get into group and you really start to have that support. You have the support of your therapist, but there's a different support when it's the same people that are going through the sessions that you are, right? It's kind of the peers that are on the same level, not that therapist that really is on another level that sometimes seems untouchable. Right. So group therapy can be really a huge benefit because of that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say that's one of the main reasons I believe in support groups is because people have so much shame when they need help with something. But then when they see that other people struggle from the same thing, they know that they're not alone, and it's just very human. So everything you said, and yes, group is amazing. It's really powerful to be with your peers like that.
Yeah, that's great that you have that platform available. So Jasmine, how would you define boundaries?
Good question. Boundaries are basically what is around us. And so one of the sayings in a codependency framework would be going around feeling somebody else's forehead to see how you're doing. Such a weird thing to think about, but if somebody else is upset, does that mean that I have to be upset? Does that mean I'm responsible for taking care of them? Does that have anything to do with me? Usually no, unless you did something. So a boundary is what is you, this is what you have control over, right? And there is so much, I use the word dysfunction, but I mean it more not functional, right? So there's functional and then dysfunctional. There are so many relationships that are not functional, where there's either a victim story where I need somebody else to do things for me to take care of myself. Or I need somebody to take care of because my identity is based on taking care of other people. And there's poor boundaries in that because I'm not super clear about who I am unless somebody else is showing me who I am. That's not healthy. Boundaries are who we are, what we're responsible for.
Yeah, that is great. And that's really the only thing that we have control over. We're only in control over ourselves, our own space. And through having control of that, it actually opens up space for people to feel more like themselves around you. So let's talk about defining self-care. How would you define that?
Self-care is so confusing. Even for me as a therapist, I'm like, okay, do I take good care of myself? I think so. But what I'm learning is I actually don't. And it's a process. And so self-care, I think we think of getting a massage or getting your nails done or something like that as a woman, something that's relaxing and takes care of yourself. But one thing that I'm learning as far as boundaries go is to say no to things, to not overwhelm myself, to be connected to how I'm feeling and what I'm actually capable of and what is my responsibility. Those are the parts of self-care that I'm talking about in my group. It's not about getting enough, water. It's about, which obviously matters. It's about, what are you doing? What are you doing to take care of yourself?
Yeah. The power of saying no and understanding, because depending on what season you're in your life and what you're dealing with differently, that's going to be changing. because if you
Yeah.
have more space, because things are, you're in more control of your space, you have more space to be supportive to the people that you love. And there's other seasons in your life that you're not. So you have to really be able to understand the power of saying no. So Jasmine, how do you know if you have poor boundaries? What are some things that would show up that you can go, okay, yeah, listening to the segment today, I definitely have some poor boundaries.
Yeah, I'm not a fun dinner party guest. I'm just kidding. I am a fun dinner party guest.
I'm sure you would
But
be a blast.
I make everybody think about themselves.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you can really see clearly is confusion is a part of boundaries, poor boundaries. Do I know what I'm supposed to be doing, or do I think somebody should be telling me what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I unclear? So another piece of having poor boundaries is from the teacher that I learned from, Pia Melody is who I use a lot of her work. She talks about it as emotional immaturity. And so if there's confusion, you don't feel like a functional adult and you're not sure how to make decisions because you don't trust yourself, that's a pretty clear sign that you may have poor boundaries.
Yeah.
Another one people say often is they don't know who they are. That's a big one.
And
it's
sad.
So sad.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere. And sometimes it presents itself as the question, what do I do? But beneath that is the question, who am I? Like, do I think
I'm say, if what should
I
I do? It's like, that would be the big question. It's like, who am I? And what a sad question to ask yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So where does this come from, Jasmine? If you feel that you have poor boundaries, where do you think majority of time that is coming from people?
Yeah. So this is the part that people don't like to talk about. It often comes from our childhood, and life is really stressful, as we know. And it's not about blaming parents. Parents do the best that they can.
Yeah.
There's a difference between intention and impact. So as a parent, there could be things that were happening for you. You could have been stressed out, and your kid maybe learned to navigate how to not stress you out more. Right. And that's a learned behavior of what I like to call enmeshment, where I don't have a separation of who I am. I need to make sure I am who you need me to be. And so I would say humans in general just struggle with things. We're emotional creatures. It doesn't mean that you're bad or unique or different. Everybody could learn about themselves and what contributed to the development of their sense of self and who they think they are. And I see it a lot with parents who have addiction. So kids who grow up in families where that's happening. But it usually comes from the childhood situation, something that happened. Yeah.
And, really you need to unpack that baggage. And while you're doing it with a therapist like Jasmine, it's going to be uncomfortable in a place that you don't want to go. But the ending result of it is, once you can unpack that, then you can really know who you are, know where you came from. You can appreciate those times that were challenging and a lot of times traumatic. And once you've embraced that and you unpacked it, then you can appreciate that. And that's what then allows you to turn into your triumph. I do a keynote where I share my story, and I call it Tragedy to Triumph. And it wasn't until I understood my tragedy in life and why I made the decisions I did. Some tragedies out of my control, but later in life, all of the tragedies were 100% in my control. They were the decisions I made around that. And once unpacking all of that and realizing that I had control of my life, then I was able to triumph from it. And when you can connect your dots, Steve Jobs has a commencement speech he did for Stanford he talks about connecting his dots. What an amazing exercise. And that's what Jasmine is talking about here. You need to get with an expert, understand where you came from, where those stories are at, which stories that you haven't unpacked and you don't understand what happened, and magical things come out of that. And Jasmine, what a great way to end my time with you today, because I think that's the biggest takeaway for anybody that's listening to the show. I just got goosebumps and I want to just start crying, because it's so important. People have so many tragedies in life because they're stuck. And you can get unstuck if you hire an expert that can help you get there. Jasmine, how can clients reach out to you?
Yeah. So Yellow Arrow Counseling is my website. I'm also very active on social media, just under my name. I post a lot of videos there. And I do have a podcast called the Live Your Life Podcast. So that's a way you can find me as well.
Wonderful. Jasmine, thank you so much for joining me in studio. It's a pleasure to have you, and I look forward to having you back.
Thank you, Tina. Thanks for having me.
All right. And feel better.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.